Hello, and welcome back to the Dumb Defenses podcast, where we go around the world and through time to bring you the weirdest legal theories. I'm Frankie,
I'm Judah.
and we are continuing our discussion on sovereign citizens today. But thanks to one of our most loyal listeners, we do have a few outside conspiracy theories to discuss ever so briefly.
Oh, and I've got a new one for you today.
So, our dear listener, who shall remain nameless,
They didn't want to say their name.
well, they were concerned about some potential hot takes on their hot takes on conspiracy theories.
All right, I'm going to pretend that their name is Extravaganza Supreme.
I think they would appreciate that. Okay, so they said, I couldn't think of just one, but here are the ones I do be loving to talk about. Number 1, 9/11 was an inside job and Israel was the push behind it. They said,
I've heard this one.
Yep.
I've heard this one.
They said, as a Jewish person, I'm not a Zionist. Netanyahu is the literal devil. I happen to agree.
I don't believe in literal devils, but
Maybe not literal devil,
I do
but
believe in figurative devils.
Netanyahu has some despicable political stances.
Like the genocide?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole genocide.
There's a whole
happening.
genocide going on. They said they don't love the theory for its content, but for its relativity as to what Bibi is doing now and has been doing to Palestine, and also just loves a good land grab, and the U.S. is just a puppet in his hand with it all.
Okay.
So there's that. Number 2, the Bible. End of
The
sentence.
Bible. So there's so many conspiracy theories about the Bible. Have you heard about the Bible Code?
Yeah.
So for our dear listeners who don't know what the Bible Code is, they think that if you lay the Hebrew scripture, I think especially out in squares,
Yeah.
that connecting symbols spell out predictions.
Yep.
It is.
And you know, a lot of it is kind of revisionist, like looking for things that have already happened. Like they claim to have predicted Kennedy's assassination and Lincoln's assassination and stuff like that, but it's people like going through and looking like a word search. And
Except for like another scientist did it just to show how ridiculous it is with Moby Dick.
mm-hmm.
And they're like, look, Moby Dick also predicted the future. If you're doing this word search style,
Yep.
any long book
Yep.
that you have will do this. And there's that thing about these prophecies only coming to light after the event actually happens, so people don't know about them before.
Mm-hmm.
You can only interpret the prophecy after the events happen, which is not a prophecy. It's just navel gazing.
Yep.
Since we're on this, you're going to let me be a little ADHD today. There is an actual conspiracy theory in the Bible.
Okay.
So, you are a Jewish person. I don't know how familiar you are with the New Testament.
Mm-mm.
There is a very important figure in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul.
Okay.
Happens after the time of Jesus. The Apostle Paul wrote a bunch of books, and his journey started that he was a Pharisee. He was prosecuting and persecuting the early church, and then he has this vision of Jesus and changes his life around and becomes an early church founder. So of the books that we have in the Bible, there are several books where the Apostle Paul is super radical. He's very egalitarian, community-minded, very early speaks out against slavery. He treats women as equals. The first convert to Christianity from the Apostle Paul is actually a eunuch, so a gender minority.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote books. There are many books of his in the Bible, a few of which we can actually point to. The radical Paul, he wrote. Later on, at least 2 people wrote other books of the Bible pretending to be Paul to undo the work that he did.
Like a tyrannical de facto government?
Yes. And those books also made it in the Bible. So there's a real conspiracy in the New Testament this Apostle Paul, here's the books we know he actually wrote, here's the books he might have written, and here's books that he for sure absolutely did not write, which go back and try and undo his work and either soften or completely reverse his message. And when people like right-wing Christians credit the Apostle Paul, guess which are the only books that they cite?
The ones that he did not write.
The ones that we know he did not write. Real life conspiracy theory, really in the Bible. Fun story. Wikipedia that shit.
That's awesome. Number 3. Tom Clancy was working for the CIA. They say, I've never read a single book of his, but my very conservative father has. And I love the idea that his books were just puff pieces for the already right-leaning ding-dongs to be like, oh my god, the feds are so cool and patriotic and I love them and I want to be them. Especially in a post-9/11 world full of beer-drinking, keyboard-clacking wannabe vigilantes. It worked. That is, if it's a conspiracy theory.
Well, you have all kinds of propaganda. I think that you could say that about a lot of things. There are films like Top Gun that we know were partially funded by the Air Force because they made the Air Force seem so cool.
Yep.
Not unreasonable.
And then number 4 is Richard of York didn't kill his 2 nephews. I think Henry or someone close to him did, but I think that Richard hid the bodies somewhere else, and that's why the archaeologists haven't found the remains, or at least have been able to confirm it as of yet. I think that he was integral to the plot, but not the murderer.
Oh, we're going way back on
that.
Yeah.
That's one I had not heard of, so maybe that might be a fun one to dig into at some point.
Or like how many people they think Shakespeare was. Like, he wasn't Shakespeare, he was really this person, he was really this person, he was really this person.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
New conspiracy.
Thank you, dear listener. That was fun and gives us some fodder for down the road.
Thank you, Extravaganza Supreme Pizza, our new favorite listener. New conspiracy theory just from this weekend for you. I went to the Sasquatch Summer Festival in Oak Ridge, Oregon.
Okay.
I thought it was at least partially going to be tongue-in-cheek. No.
Oh.
No. There's so much to dive into, which I can share with you later. But my favorite new conspiracy theory is there was a bunch of Sasquatch living in the lava tubes in Mount St. Helens, and when it erupted, the helicopters that you saw were Black Ops helicopters sent to remove Sasquatch bodies, so we didn't know they exist.
Oh my god.
But I was thinking, if they were in the lava tubes and lava was coming to the surface, then they would be bits of charcoal. Why would you need to airlift them out?
Maybe they floated.
Then we have to also believe that Sasquatch is essentially fireproof.
Yeah, they might be.
If they were living in lava tubes, who knows?
Probably.
I wanted to share that one with you.
That's awesome. All right. So, getting back to our dear friends, the sovereign citizens. Last week, we started talking about the Moorish branch of the sovereign citizens. I'll do a little bit of background, and then I think Judah has a little bit of a deep dive on them.
It's not a deep dive. We're talking about a cult. And your dude here loves to talk about a cult.
Yep. So, let's do a little bit of the background here. They began in the 90s in New York City, when the Moorish Science Temple was introduced to sovereign citizen concepts. They focused on the hostility towards the government rather than towards racial or religious minorities. And they adopted most of the traditional sovereign citizen ideas with certain additions. One of the things they added was a focus on the 1786 treaty between the US and Morocco, which they claim gave blacks special privileges and immunities, and they claim indigenous status or otherwise being from another country or nation. And that's how they sort of fall under this treaty. They also will claim diplomatic status, including license plates, passports, etc., or claim that their groups are consulates or embassies. So a lot of the same sort of like general genre of sovereign citizen stuff, except instead of the whole blacks are only 14th Amendment big C citizens, they're like, we're special from before there was even a constitution. or right around the same time. Over time, they would pull in people from various fringe religious groups like the Nubian Nation, Black Hebrew Israelites, and others, but also from mainstream groups like Black Panthers. And it opened up the sovereign citizen movement to every race, ethnicity, and background, and it is the most diverse American group on the far right. That's what I got. That was what, in all of my 8 sources, that's what I pulled out.
So, in my spare time, I watch many garbage documentaries. It's pulp reading for the eyes.
I wouldn't call them garbage.
Some of them are. For instance, I just watched A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot.
But you're a cryptozoologist. That's research.
Yes, I am a cryptozoologist. It goes to my accreditation. People want to know. So I watched People Magazine Investigates Cults, like all of the episodes. And the Nubian Nation of Moors is peak. And then I watched...
Yeah, it's a cult.
Yeah, and then I watched How I Escaped My Cult.
Those are always fun.
Yep. So the Nubian Nation starts in New York, and it really starts as this sort of Black identity, like Islam identified, empowerment. And I would say that you see some similarities to the Black Panther movement in housing people, feeding people, educating. But the problem is it's all focused and led by one dude, Dwight York. And I wouldn't necessarily categorize this as only Moorish sovereign citizens. The cult goes through many different ideations and belief systems.
Yeah.
And they wind up moving to Georgia. It becomes kind of a quasi Egyptology, sun worshipping religion, but their leader is, the god is the center of the religion. And when some former adherents spoke out and there was a giant raid, it turns out that Dwight York was committing horrible acts of child sexual abuse.
What?
Horrible,
in a cult?
Horrible. I actually saw, one time we're going to talk about the one documentary where there was no weird sex stuff going on in the cult.
What?
It's like the only one I've ever heard of. There's always weird sex stuff. I'm gonna include Heaven's Gate for the no sex self-castration thing. That's a weird sex thing.
That is a weird sex thing.
Watching these documentaries, I got a huge amount of empathy for the adherents because America has a horrible problem with racism, and this was development of an identity, of a community.
It felt like a safe space for them.
A safe space, a structure that felt empowering, a way to escape American mainstream culture, which is incredibly violent towards people of color, violent and dehumanizing. And then as you are watching this, you see the kind of general stratagem of a cult leader come forward with the increasingly radicalized beliefs, inability to communicate with outside culture or outside people, all these different mechanisms of control. Then, like the huge exodus to this rural property where, to be safe, and the armed guards. The interesting thing about this, though, is how the federal government and local authorities plan the raid, learning from the Waco massacre, and that they nabbed the leader when he was outside of the compound and then went in with the head leadership wasn't present to interview and evaluate. And Dwight York is in prison for the rest of his life for the horrible things that he's done to children. He still has adherents.
Yep.
They
don't tend to, stop adhering when the leader goes to prison. We've seen that multiple times over.
Yeah, the idea of cognitive dissonance came from sociologists studying a doomsday cult. You've probably heard that story. I understand and appreciate more sovereign citizens more than I do white people. I'm not saying that it's great. I'm saying that you have a better reason.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been ostracized by society, so why answer to it?
Yep. And also, a lot of black people in America, we literally kidnapped them. And then we
Yes.
enslaved them. And then we enslaved
Yes.
their children.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And we continue to do that in a structural fashion today.
yes, if you would like to hear us talk about slavery in prison and the imprisonment of black bodies, black and brown bodies, please give us 4 to 6 hours.
Or a future episode.
Yes. That was my bit. The Nubian Nation
Yep.
is one of those fascinating, lesser known cults because there wasn't like
Yeah.
murders, but there was horrifying child sex abuse.
Yep. And the Moorish Science Temple also kind of read a little culty in what I was looking at. So it's just it's all sorts of people trying to give a home to people of color and then abusing that attention. So there's that.
Targeting vulnerable population. There's a serial killer researcher
Mm-hmm.
who says that he only focuses on, studying victim groups, and it's vulnerable women and gay men. That's who he really focuses on, and how you see those also pop up in cult structures.
Yeah, that tracks. So with that, I think there was a specific little nuance of sovereign citizen modernity that Judah wanted to talk about. Let's set it up with, this is based on a recent court case that overturned what's called Chevron deference.
Let me do that.
Oh, fine.
Because that's my whole bit.
Okay.
So I wanted to find something that sovereign citizens are like grasping onto as a win for the sovereign citizen movement. And they have latched onto the overturning of a policy called the Chevron deference. And most people have probably never heard of the Chevron deference because it is so narrowly applied. So here's
and
how
it's not applied to anything that anybody would ever see in their daily lives.
No, not unless you work for
an alphabet soup agency.
Yeah, specifically for the federal government.
For the federal government, yep.
And what the Chevron deference used to be was that federal judges, when interpreting federal administrative rules, had to defer their opinions, their judicial opinions, to how the federal administrative agency in question internally interpreted those rules.
Right. And the reason for this is that the judges were essentially like, y'all are the experts in these areas, and so why would we know any better than you do? This rule came out of a case called EPA versus Chevron from the 80s, where
84.
Something like that, yeah. This issue came up between Chevron, the gas company, and the EPA because Chevron was violating EPA rules.
Again.
And the court essentially said, we're not going to question the EPA on how they interpret their rules because they have all of the scientists and experts who are able to apply the rules appropriately. We don't have that educational background.
And they are applying the rules in action.
Yep.
Then in 2024, the Supreme Court issues an opinion on Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. And it says, no, federal judges can make their own interpretations outside of how the agency is interpreting their own policies.
Because fuck precedent.
I'm going to put a pin in this and also say that when you're looking at administrative rules, it is a rule book really that administrative agency has to follow.
Yep.
And they also write their own rule book.
They do. They have to put it out for public comment for a period of time before any rules change, but it is the rules that they are supposed to follow, and it's really fun when you're going up against a state or federal agency and you say, but have you read your rule book? And you're able to cite it back to them chapter and verse, and they're like, wait, what?
I do this all the time. So in Oregon, the law is the Oregon Revised Statutes.
Yep.
So the legislature makes the law, and we have Court of Appeals and Oregon Supreme Court, sometimes federal court interpretation of Oregon law. And you can reasonably say that the Oregon Revised Statute applies to everybody.
Right.
The administrative rules are the Oregon administrative rules. We call them the OIRs. There are 650 billion of them.
Yep.
And it's only helpful when you're questioning the representative of a state administrative agency and you're like, hey, you wrote these rules and you have to follow your own rule. Why aren't you following your own rule?
Yep.
So we do that really regularly. So if this sounds like really boring and distant and far away from you as an average citizen, you are correct. You
Yep.
are 110% correct. So Loper Bright Enterprises says, all right, judges, it's not even saying like that old case law and old judicial opinions are wrong. It is saying you, the federal judge, can interpret ambiguous administrative statutes or rules differently than how the agency itself does it. Even in the land of federal administrative law, I can't imagine this comes up all that often because it only applies to ambiguous rules.
Yep.
But here we go. So that's overturned. And this little thing has been celebrated as the federal government removing its power from itself.
And consolidating it in the Supreme Court, right? Like, it just transferred.
Well, there were so many different interpretations. I tried to watch some YouTube videos on this made by sovereign citizens themselves. And I'm not going to cite them here because you shouldn't watch them because I didn't finish them. Because no, that's not at all what that does. It's like, oh, this is the beginning. This is Donald Trump, who is some sovereign citizens, even though he's making a huge federal power grab, is like, no, he's our hero. It's like, no, you just have the
Speaking of
same
cognitive
attitude.
dissonance.
Yeah, that cognitive dissonance. You know, that this court or his court is pulling out the bricks of federal power, and this is like the base of the tower, and it's going to come crumbling down when in reality it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. Sorry, this is my mom texting me.
No
Hi,
worries.
Mom. And I wanted to bring that forward as like, this is what they're saying is a win. There was no sovereign citizens involved, as far as I could tell,
Right.
reading the opinion. And even reading the opinion to me was dull.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big deal in terms of like anybody working for the government was like, what the hell just happened? Because for so long it had been that's like, we're able to go do our own thing and be able to apply our own rules without the court intervening. And now the fear, at least on the part of the federal agency, people that I've spoken with, is that now the court's going to insert itself in everything and essentially make the government non-functioning, which I suppose is a good thing for sovereign citizens, right?
Well, it's been 2 years. That hasn't happened. I imagine that there was a lot of new rulemaking and clarification because if a rule is ambiguous, unlike a law, the agency can go through a much simpler process of changing it.
Right.
So what I deal with every day is the administrative rules as they apply to the Oregon Department of Human Services Child Welfare Division. And they are, I guess, kind of copied into the ODHS Child Welfare Manual, which itself fluctuates between like 950 pages and 1100 pages.
There's so many rules.
There's so many rules, and that manual changes all the time. Like if you're going to try and cite the manual in court, every single time, even if you checked it and you got it the month before, you have to check to make sure that you have the most updated copy because the administrative rules have changed.
Yep.
So, Frankie, what do you think about that big win for sovereign citizens everywhere?
I mean, as I talked through it, I see how they are excited about it. I think their excitement is probably short-sighted because rather than the federal power being scattered to the wind of all the alphabet soup agencies, it's now being consolidated in the president and the Supreme Court, which I don't think is something that they would actually want because I feel like they wouldn't be in favor of tyranny.
Well, they're consolidating federal power, which is the opposite goal.
Right.
Of the sovereign citizen movement. But in a way, it's like we're also dealing only with federal administrative agencies. We never had anything like the Chevron deference in state court.
Right. At least not in Oregon.
At least not in Oregon.
Yeah. I wonder if we might see more, because we're about to dive into paper terrorism. I wonder if we're going to see more of that coming up through with the Chevron deference going away, because now they have more stuff that they can file on potentially.
I've had people try it. I've seen it tried to absolutely no success.
Right.
Shocker, because it doesn't apply.
It doesn't apply.
And we can already ask the judge to say, hey, they're saying that they followed this administrative rule. Judge, to find no reasonable efforts, I want you to find that they did not follow that administrative rule. That's a no reasonable efforts finding in a hearing that we argue about. I mean, that's my bread and butter, baby.
Yeah.
I argue about no reasonable efforts all the time.
Yep. Which then there's potential monetary sanctions on the agency by the feds and blah, 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 blah. All sorts of fun stuff there. But yeah, so like this whole idea of additional filings, paper terrorism, speaking of bread and butter, that is the bread and butter of the sovereign citizens is this. And they literally call it paper terrorism. It's not like a colloquial term that I'm throwing on there. Like, this is what they call it. This is their intention. Essentially what it is abusing the legal system with indecipherable filings and lashing out with even more filings when confronted. So they're using this weird quantum language that I will attempt to explain either this week or next week, depending on how far we get, that makes it really difficult to read. And it's literally like the purpose is to gum up the legal system.
So let's put a pin in this for our non-lawyer friends. So there are certain types of things that we can file that would generate a court hearing.
Yep.
And you can request a hearing on it. You can dictate the amount of time in your motion caption, and you can serve it out, and you can pull people into court. What's a common one that is going to pull everybody into court? I mean, motions to dismiss. If they're contested, you go to court. You have a contested hearing.
Criminal cases, you'll have a lot of what's called a motion to suppress, which means that there is evidence that essentially the cops did something wrong procedurally, and because of that, the defendant's rights were violated. And
in regards to a search.
And because of that, anything past the point of the illegality cannot come in at trial. And sometimes that means that the drugs in a drug possession case is suppressed, and then there's no case anymore because there's no drugs anymore.
Yeah, so I've done that. I've had urine samples suppressed in DUI cases, and that was the only evidence that they had. They didn't take a breathalyzer, they didn't take a blood test, that somebody was intoxicated, and you have no more DUI case.
Right.
But also, for our non-legal listeners, Mom, the suppressing everything from the point that the illegal search started going on, that doctrine is called the fruit of the poisonous tree, which is so elegant and poetic and lovely.
Yeah. And so essentially, for example, you are in a situation where you're not allowed to leave. A reasonable person would think they're not allowed to leave, and the officer is asking questions. That is a very simplified analysis of what would be called custodial interrogation, where your Miranda warnings, your right to remain silent, right to have an attorney, blah, 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 would be required to be read to you. If the officer does not, and then learns of something that they're then like, oh, wait, let me Mirandize you, and then I'll ask you that same question again so that I can have that incriminating statement. That entire interview is out the window.
And that's very fact-dependent.
Yes, it is very fact-dependent.
That's very, very fact-dependent. It's much easier for kids than it is for adults, BT dubs. So we've gone through, like, hey, we've got things you could generate, that you can throw in, and it's going to gum up the court times either by the court has to review it all or by dragging everybody into a court. We, as attorneys, have an ethical obligation as lawyers not to file frivolous motions or requests for that exact reason, to not gum up the court. So we have that ethical obligation. Regular people who do not have lawyers do not have that same obligation.
Right. And a motion is literally just a request for the court. That's what it's called,
Yeah.
is a motion.
I'm talking about other kinds of requests.
Yeah, well, right. But a motion is you're requesting the court to do something.
You can even just request the court to have a hearing.
Yeah. These filings, they have to comply with the sovereign citizen truth language, which is this quantum language, including such rules as all sentences must start with the preposition for and have no less than 13 words, and use more nouns than verbs with complex punctuation rules. This is what's called quantum grammar. It is wild to try to read these things. I will link something in the show notes to give you an idea.
Just read me a sentence, Frank.
Oh, I need to find it. Hold on.
Just read me one of them weird-ass sentences. Prepare your brain for whatever goo's about to come out.
Right.
And then I have a response.
Yeah. So for the correct hyphen, parse hyphen, syntax hyphen, grammar hyphen, positive hyphen, performance hyphen, global hyphen, treaty hyphen, rules of the correct hyphen, sentence hyphen, structure hyphen, communication hyphen, parse hyphen, syntax hyphen, grammar are with the author's hyphen, knowledge hyphen, claim of the now hyphen, time hyphen, words by the global hyphen, styles hyphen, manual hyphen, treaty.
What?
This is a descriptor. I'll put it in the show notes. This is a descriptor of how the language works in the language. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to pause here to lighten the mood for a second. I'm going to direct all my listeners to the New Age Bullshit Generator. So this is a website that will give you New Agey language that doesn't mean anything. And I'm going to argue it's the same thing, different intent. But this is for fun. So I'm going to click reionize electrons to see. I'll just read you a little bit of our New Age Bullshit Generator. The truth is constant. We exist as electrical impulses. Science tells us the essence of nature is conscious living. This life is nothing short of a condensing network of ever-present rebirth. I'll stop there. It's got a whole thing. So if you would like to generate your own level of bullshit,
we'll put that in the show notes too.
I would direct you to the New Age Bullshit Generator, something that sounds profound. None of the words mean anything when you put them together.
Yep. That's essentially what it winds up sounding like. This language, like many things in the sovereign citizen movement, started off as the idea of one specific theorist named David Wynn Miller in the 1990s, and it essentially caught on. A lot of these theories and things that have become the core of this movement was essentially somebody spitballing at some point, and people were like, that's a really cool idea, and ran with it. And that's why there's never really been like a leader. There have been like gurus who are really like well versed in everything, but there's never been any specific like leadership because it's largely people making shit up and seeing what will happen.
Much like my expertise in cryptozoology.
Mm-hmm. So this quantum language is based in quantum mechanics, i.e.
it's not. No, it's not.
This is the theory. It's based.
Frank.
It's the theory. It says it's.
How on earth is it based in quantum mechanics?
I don't know. That's what all the information says that they believe. Okay, so they believe it's based in quantum mechanics, meaning that it's based on facts and cannot be misinterpreted, as opposed to natural language, which can. So all sentences must make sense regardless of which direction they're read. And it's based in the belief that language is a form of energy, and that by understanding the quantum energy behind it, people can better communicate with one another and can create unambiguous contracts. Okay? So the whole issue that they're trying to get around, oh my God. Are you a T-Rex? What is this?
It's my pterodactyl face. I mean, I'm doing this trying to make you laugh in the middle of you spewing out this bullshit. I want,
Except that my Word document is in front of my webpage while I'm recording.
Make this the clip that's the clip that people looking for the picture for this show today.
Okay.
That's how I feel about that absolute bogus language that is based in quantum mechanics. Eat a bag of dirt. What? Yeah,
So,
absolute
they
hell.
take issue with all of these laws and contracts, which are like ambiguous because of whatever flowery language that people use to speak, and that creates inconsistencies and misunderstandings, and you don't have the meetings of the minds for the contracts. But they claim that this quantum language, because it is based in fact, that it will not. And the reason that they say this is that because using quantum grammar, only nouns have legal meaning, and
Uh-huh.
those meanings are static and absolute.
Uh-huh.
Using a colon indicates a fact. Words are assigned numerical values, and by looking at the syntax, you can determine the truth of the statement, so they say.
Hang on. Libby has something to say about this. Say it again, Libby. Oh, she quit saying it. She's gonna go outside and take a dump because that filled her up with so much bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna let my old ass dog outside to poop out what she just heard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Frank. That bull ass hattery just put a grain of sand in the delicate gears of my mind.
But wait, there's more. Words are assigned numerical values, and by
Like
looking...
Scrabble.
Yep, and by looking at the syntax, you can determine the truth of the statement. Verbs are not used unless in the gerund form, which is the noun form of the verb. Adjectives, adverbs, and pronouns are not used. So literally, every word is either a noun or the noun form of a verb.
She's done pooping.
Okay.
I'm gonna go outside and poop now. It's gonna be me.
All right.
Sorry, Megan's not home today, so I'm on full dog duty.
No worries.
Leave the pooping thing in the show.
Okay.
Because that makes no goddamn sense. Because if you read one of those sentences, nobody would be able to tell what it said.
Yeah, let's see. Sentences start with prepositions because a preposition is needed to certify a noun.
No, it's not.
A word that starts with a vowel followed by two consonants means no contract and will void any document. The added punctuation... Apparently, if you use a word in the contract that is a three-letter word with a vowel and two nouns, like the word all, it completely voids the entire contract. The added punctuation are hieroglyphs that give language and names life. So names are written and said as first hyphen, middle, colon, last. Yes, you read the punctuation. The colon makes the person a fact, because remember, colons are used to certify nouns.
So...
It makes no goddamn sense.
It makes no goddamn sense. So we could say, like Mary Jones, hereinafter referred to as petitioner. And if you call her petitioner, it's not valid because you're not using...
Mm-hmm. You're
the
not
name.
using their flesh and blood name, yes. So they will also sometimes use doublespeak, including homonyms. So they may link the idea of a birth certificate with the maritime law meaning by spelling it B-E-R-T-H instead of B-I-R-T-H.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me.
Or currency, like money, by spelling it current, C, S-E-A. So nothing will make sense because they're using improper spellings on top of this quantum mechanics-based grammar to make all their points.
I feel like I just got hit by a clown car and then backed up and went forward and backed up and forward a couple of times.
And each time it's going... Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, this is just a clown car full of nouns. Please continue.
So these filings are always pseudo-legal. To a layperson, they may look official, but to someone trained in the law, it looks like gobbledygook. as we
I
can see.
understand how legalese is what we call it.
Hmm.
Looks artificial, and the modern lawyer is very discouraged from using it whenever possible.
Right.
But there are terms of art, I'm just sua sponte,
Yep.
that are Latin, that are very old, that you could also write out in a longer,
The English form of it.
yeah, the English form of it, or a term like de novo review, where that is a specific type of court review.
Right.
But if you are a lawyer and you are throwing out as much legalese as you can to make yourself sound fancy, you're also the kind of lawyer who calls yourself doctor. You are an asshole.
And you also probably aren't as good at it as you think you are.
No.
If you need to use big words to prove yourself, then you've got something to prove.
If you can't argue without Latin.
Yeah.
So if I say sua sponte, I could say on the court's own motion.
Yep. Yep. De novo means
All new.
New, yeah, completely new review of it.
But that's the court. That's a name for a specific type of review.
Right. You have like, things that are used pretty consistently, like a motion in limine. In limine means at the door. It just means a motion that you can file like as you're walking into trial. It doesn't have to have any sort of leeway to it.
And if you do that, your judge will yell at you.
Yeah. I always file motions in limine ahead of time, even though they're in limine.
And then we have an omnibus motion hearing where you get it all settled.
Which is essentially one big hearing and you can tackle any number of issues in it.
Yeah, so if you're having...
Not to be confused with an ombudsperson, which means kind of like a social worker liaison-y person that you can file complaints with.
Okay, all right, I think it's my vision is coming back into focus.
Mm-hmm. You ready for me to continue?
Sure. Hit me with your best shot.
Because of all of these beliefs that we've talked about in this quantum language, it may not be a surprise that even the smallest traffic infraction can lead to mountains of pseudo-legal filings. One example was the case of Donna Lee Ray, who was the common law wife of guru and figurehead Jerry Kane. She was brought before court over not paying a dog licensing fee. For those who do not have animals, you may not know that you are actually supposed to license your dog with the county in which you live.
And it's not all pets.
It's just dogs.
It's just dogs. Also, we have, not to brag, all 3 of our dogs are licensed, and they're also vaccinated.
Yeah, in order to get your dog licensed, your dog has to be at least rabies vaccinated. I don't know
rabies
about
vaccinated.
At least, but not necessarily like parvo, lepto, all that stuff, but absolutely rabies vaccinated.
Yeah, so you can let your dog die of parvo, which is a miserable death, and still get your license.
Yep. So, she did not pay this dog licensing fee. She filed 10 of these pseudo-legal sovereign citizen documents over a 2-month period, which annoyed the prosecutor enough that the prosecutor just gave up and dropped the case. So these can actually look like victories because the person prosecuting or on the other side of the case is just like, fuck this, I'm done, and walks away.
Because our dog license fee per dog was about $30 or
like
$35.
$30, yeah.
$30 or $35. A lot of the like Class D violations, like the fine is minimal.
It's like, yeah, $200, $300, something like that.
Sometimes less. Some of the fines in the city of Corvallis, they can go from $25. And so you have an actual prosecutor or contracted prosecutor who's like, I've just spent $400 of the city's time, and all they could possibly recoup is $25.
It's an absolute waste of money.
So I guess that could be a victory if you file on a crappy paper, or you could just get somebody just like hardcore that's like, I don't give a crap. I am going to go after you, and I'm going to keep finding you.
Some other forms of this paper terrorism is sometimes as a retaliatory tactic. A sovereign citizen will file a bogus property lien against government targets, which may go unannounced until they try to sell their home. So these liens could be for millions or more, and even if the sovereign citizen is punished criminally for putting the bogus lien in place, the homeowner still needs to deal with getting it taken off.
And that's a huge pain in the butt.
It's a huge pain in the ass. So what happens is, like, if there's a prosecutor who filed a traffic ticket or something, they'll find out where they live and they'll just file this lien against the house as a retaliation for the criminal charges. Sometimes they'll also file false tax documents to ruin an enemy's credit by getting them audited by the IRS. Another form of retaliation is filing bonus big money lawsuits against someone who they believe has wronged them, such as a cop who pulled them over for having fictitious plates. And they'll just sue them for millions of dollars, and then the cop has to get representation and all this stuff and waste all this money. And there's no legal claim there, it's just retaliation. And the whole point of the retaliation is making the cop spend all this money to defend this frivolous case.
I actually knew about a lot of this. I had heard about this happening. I know an attorney who was the victim of this. Good attorney, wound up having to hire, only a fool represents themselves, or the man who represents himself has a fool for a lawyer, and had to spend a couple $1,000s,
Yep.
wanting to, and then the case just got shut down. And then if you're going backwards at them, and you're trying to do a counterclaim or suing them for malicious prosecution,
yeah,
they're judgment proof, which means they don't have any money.
Right.
They don't have any assets you can grab.
And Judah alluded to this earlier, but while attorneys are ethically bound to not file anything frivolous, and lay people are not, there is a rule of civil procedure that actually allows for sanctions, money sanctions, not against the client, but against the attorney, the filer, for filing frivolous suits or motions or anything. And the fines essentially would be the attorney's fees of the other person having to defend those suits, or more. It could frankly just be a punitive fine.
But if it's above and beyond what it cost you, then it goes into the Victims Assistance Fund. Anyway.
Yep. They have also filed fraudulent tax returns to get a large refund to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars from the IRS. And then that gets spent on luxury vehicles and real property by the time they are caught. That whole trust account that they have. They're just trying to tap into that. They will also mail out bogus criminal writs of execution to government officials, attempting to hold them accountable, including offering bounties for anybody who can bring them to the Sovereign Citizen Tribunal. Newer versions of this would be to engage in fictitious arbitration association to demand payment of high sums of money of government officials. These paper terrorist documents have been formulated and developed and honed over the years to be the most effective that they can be. And then the gurus will then go sell these documents on social media or what have you, claiming you'll absolutely win, and they make thousands and thousands of dollars from their followers, and it's all just bullshit. They've also, there's more paper terrorism.
Of course,
like I said, this is the main thing that they engage in is this paper terrorism. They've deeded vacant or empty homes to themselves, or just lived there and rented it out to other people. This largely happened during the mortgage crisis in the late aughts. One group went so far as to seize a mansion, change the locks, put a chain across the front gate to show that it was theirs. And sometimes they just show up at the door of an occupied home and claim to be the legal owners. They'll have
Lord.
They will work to convince homeowners in foreclosure to deed that property to the sovereign citizen using a quitclaim deed, which is the deed that gives you the least recourse against the prior owners. They convince the homeowners by falsely claiming that they can stop the foreclosure and give the property back for a fee. So essentially, they say, hey, quick, deed us your house, we'll get you out from under the foreclosure, and then we can sell the house back to you. And then either they never do, or they make a fuck ton of money off of nothing, and the house still has the foreclosure on it. So they never actually get the person out of the foreclosure. So either way, this homeowner winds up losing their house, but when the sovereign citizen gets involved, they lose their house and thousands of dollars. Other types of paper terrorism involve, they could file a fraudulent tax return to extinguish the mortgage in this homeowner foreclosure situation, and then take 20 to 35% off the top for themselves. And HUD has actually recovered tens of millions of dollars and prosecuted individuals for this particular scheme.
I mean, good God.
Yeah, it's creating victims left, right, and center.
And this isn't what I was thinking of or what I have seen, which is somebody in their own cases filing motions that don't
Right,
exist.
and they do that too, but they also attempt to amass wealth by doing these things as well. There was a group called the Colorado Eight that were charged with a racketeering scheme after they ran common law courts, which is these courts that they set up themselves. They're their own judges, things like that. And
I'm a
they
judge.
and they pressed charges against judges, prosecutors, sheriffs, etc. These faux trials took place in Burns, Oregon. Again, they were related to the Malheur Refuge takeover from Colorado. They came all the way out here to hold their own tribunal. Another example of these amassing of paper filings, there was a sovereign citizen named Shauna Cox who was arrested in Kane County, Utah. She attempted to claim the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments, and that her case was being heard in the common law courts. And a group called Statewide Common Law Grand Jury filed 24 total objections to the unlawful status hearing. And, she tried. Like, the 5th Amendment is all of your right to remain silent, your right to have an attorney, all that stuff.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite one.
Right.
Well, number 1 and number 5.
Your 6th Amendment rights are your right to a criminal speedy public jury trial and all of that kind of grand jury preliminary hearing. That stuff falls under 6th Amendment. The 7th Amendment is your civil right to a jury trial. Doesn't quite fit in this situation, which again shows like they've kind of sort of read the Constitution, but not quite.
Well, she went in there because they were filing charges against her corporation self, not her personal self. That's civil.
Yeah. So
that's civil.
There's that.
Okay. I feel drained of my life force just listening to this. like when you're playing a video game and you're just and I even had a super amount of caffeine. So much caffeine.
Yeah. So there's always they're always amending these documents. They're always trying to make them better and make them more effective. And people will pay money for these documents, and then they bring them back to the gurus when they lose and they say it didn't work. And the guru's response is essentially, well, you didn't do it right. Try this one.
You did it wrong. Yeah, you didn't have enough colons in there.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Well, thank you for that. I didn't think I was going to hear something more bananas than the Bigfoot lava tubes. But you did it, because I didn't do the deep dive into the language and stuff. Like when I was looking stuff up, I was like, looking up cases and what people are claiming and like the cases that got publicity. And you did. I respect deeply the full nerd that you went to.
I do have another page and a half or two of notes that we can probably work on diving into next week, unless you want to
let's
power through.
No. Let's do a real lighthearted send-off, and we can pick how we're going to structure it for next week. You're taking the heavy hitters 3 weeks in a row. What would you like me to look at for next week? I can look at everybody who's claimed to be Canadian royalty.
Well, there is one specific Canadian royal that I came across, and her name is escaping me at the moment, but I can get that name to you. She is like the sovereign citizen queen of Canada, and you can start with that next week.
I think I probably found it. It's okay. Woof is what I have to say for that. Woof. Woof.
Keep those emails coming of your favorite conspiracy theories. We can always start off with that if we get some more.
Or if you ever seen a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, smaller hairy hominid that we haven't discussed, mythical creature, I want to hear about it. I'm not going to judge you. I'm desperate to see one.
Yep. Any sort of that, email it to us at dumbdefensespodcast@gmail.com. Like, review, share the podcast so we can continue to grow, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.